All right, off to our week 6 games. First one on the docket here is Tennessee -3 at LSU. Very intriguing matchup. What is your takeaway, or what is your take on this one, Shoob?
So this one is very tricky for me here because on one hand, you have Tennessee that's looked pretty solid this season. They're coming off of a bye and they're going on the road to face LSU, who had to scrap one out at home against Auburn last week. And I still do believe that LSU is still being a little bit undervalued. Now, I know a lot of you may be saying, oh, they barely beat Auburn. They're not good at all. Well, I still do believe that this LSU team is a little bit better than what the market suggests. And I do think this will be a close game here. And I'm going to roll the dice here. I think that LSU wins this game. Now, am I confident in this? No, not at all. Like, I still do believe that Tennessee is a very good team. I do believe Tennessee is a top 10, maybe 15 caliber team, but I think LSU is going to bring their A game. I think that they are maybe looking ahead to this one against Auburn. So I'm going to take LSU to upset Tennessee at home here. Tennessee coming off of a bye certainly is a huge advantage for the Vols, but I'm going to roll the dice here. I'm going to call what is kind of a minor surprising upset.
I like that. I like that. A little grit on these picks, Shoob. I like that a lot. I will say I'm going the opposite direction. Like you said, man, bye week. Bye week is huge for Tennessee to prep. LSU, I don't know, man. LSU, like you said, I think is a solid team that hasn't been adjusted for with the market. But at the same time, man, I mean, Tennessee is playing out of their mind this year. Their offense is just fantastic under Hooker. And I don't think LSU is going to be able to keep up. I don't think so. It does help that LSU is at home here, but this is also a noon game, man. This isn't a night game in Death Valley. This is a night game in Death Valley. That atmosphere hits a little bit differently. Regardless, this is one to be watching. This will be a good game, but I'm going to take Tennessee both ways.
Yeah, I'm not confident in that one at all. I could totally see Tennessee winning. I think that's probably the more popular side here, but I'll roll the dice. So let's move on here. TCU -7 at Kansas. I was very happy to get a TCU -4.5 line here before it moved. But as far as these picks here on Tuesday, it's -7. What's your take here on this game? A ranked matchup, by the way. The marquee game in the Big 12 this week. Who would have thought?
Man, both undefeated. Would we say, can you believe we're saying that about Kansas? Undefeated this late into the season? Ranked game against TCU? Wow, man. All I can say is the fans are going to show out for Kansas. It's going to be a great atmosphere. They're going to play their best brand of football. But TCU is the better team. And, ultimately Kansas they were a chip shot field goal away from going to OT against Iowa State, who this year, I mean, they're not a bad team, but they're definitely going to be at the bottom of the Big 12 this year. I mean, Kansas, despite their drastic improvement, I don't think is going to be good enough to defeat TCU even at home. I'm going to take TCU, but this -7 is really interesting to me, Shu, because 7 is a push. A touchdown is a push, man. I guess I can live with that. I'm going to take TCU both ways. I think 10 points is the way to go.
Well, I'm a little surprised. I thought you were going to go with Kansas on the spread there, but I am with you. I reiterate everything you said. I think TCU is a very good team this year. I think they are going to be slept on a little bit this week. And I know that, don't get me wrong, I love everything about Kansas. I love the story and everything, the Cinderella story of this season. But
It
we
ends.
come down to business here with these picks. There's
It
no
ends this
Cinderella
week.
here. Listen, I think it comes to an end here, the undefeated season in Lawrence. I think TCU is legit top 15, top 20 caliber team. Even though Kansas is ranked, they're 5-0. I still don't believe they're a power rated top 25 caliber team. And I think that this TCU offense is just going to be a little too much here. And I'm with you. I think TCU wins this game by like 10 to 13 points, but I don't think it'll necessarily be a blowout. I mean, it's Lance Leipold after all. I think Kansas will still keep it relatively competitive.
All right, Shu. Well, let's move on down to the Cotton Bowl, aka the Red River Rivalry. And I saw an interesting thing on Twitter earlier this week. It said that it's interesting that every matchup but one in the Big 12 has a ranked team playing in it. The one that doesn't is the Red River.
It's funny
Texas.
how this sport works, man.
Yep. Texas -7 versus Oklahoma. What are your takeaways on this, Shu?
I believe this is the first time since before Bob Stoops was the coach that neither one of these teams is ranked in this matchup here. But yeah, Texas opened up as about -5 on their line. It's creeped up to -7. As far as betting wise, I would not touch this one at all because we still do not know the status of Dylan Gabriel. Today is Tuesday, if you're watching this video, and Venables said it would be a game time decision. So as of right now, I can't really say whether or not Dylan Gabriel is going to play. So I gotta kind of play it safe here, and this is a little bit rolling the dice. It feels like because Oklahoma, it seems like in these situations when they have a couple stumbling, they lose a couple games at the beginning of the year. It seems like they kind of always seem to right the ship in the past and win these types of games and rally the rest of the season. But we saw a lot of problems for the Sooner defense last week against TCU. And as far as Texas, this is coming from a guy that bet the Texas under win total this year. I am buying stock low on Texas right now. I think if Texas's outlook for the rest of the year was a stock, now is the time to buy low. They are getting Quinn Ewers back. I think Texas could be a top 10 to top 15 caliber team the rest of the season with Ewers. So I'm going to take Texas to win this game. Dylan Gabriel being banged up probably is going to help. Even if he plays, I still think Texas will win this game. And it just doesn't feel right picking OU to start 0-3 in conference play because it seems like this is always the spot where the Sooners bounce back here. But I got to go Texas both ways here, man. I got to do it. Am I confident in it? Probably not for all the reasons I just said, but I'm going hook 'em horns both ways here.
I'm going hook 'em horns both ways. If Hudson Card plays, this could very well be a 6 point game at the end of the day, which will kill the spread. But I'm going with Ewers, man. I'm with you. Texas both.
I think we just ensured an OU victory there because, man, I just feel icky doing that right now. But hey, we'll see how that one plays out. I'm very interested to see how that goes. Let's move on here. Purdue at Maryland. This is an interesting game. Two middle tier teams in the Big Ten Conference. Cross divisional matchup here too. Maryland's a 3-point favorite at home. What's your take here?
This one's tough to pick, man. I mean, Purdue has just outplayed their projections so well, despite losing so much offensive production from last year, and that screams great or very well coached team to me. You can't lose that level of offensive production from last year and still be this competitive in a way that Purdue is. And Purdue was able to shut down Minnesota last week in offense that who was rated number one in efficiency going into that game. And Maryland's bread and butter right now is offense. So Purdue certainly makes this a very, very interesting matchup. Line is sitting there at -3. So what's our rule? You've got to go both ways. So, man, that makes this a really tough pick because I'm not going to be confident in this whatsoever. This one is a flip of a coin to me. But give me the Boilermakers both ways.
Oh, if it's -3, I think you can hedge both ways. If it's -2.5 or less, then that's where our rule applies here. So I'll give
Okay,
you.
I got you. I
If
got
it's
you.
three, you
Give
can
me
hedge both
Maryland on the
ways.
win and Purdue on the spread then.
All right, so you're gonna chicken out here
I'm
and
gonna
cover.
hedge. I'm gonna hedge.
So I am more inclined to do what you did. I mean, this is truly a coin flip game to me. It's like Purdue really impressed me last week. Purdue seems to be a lot of hot and cold this year. And as far as Maryland, Maryland over 6 wins was one of my best bets from the offseason. And I truthfully didn't really expect this Maryland defense to improve as much as it has. I thought, we all knew this Maryland offense would be very good with Talia Tagovailoa, all those receivers. They got talent there. But this Maryland defense has kind of stepped it up a bit, and they're not necessarily, one of the worst defenses in the Power Five anymore. So the fact that Maryland's at home obviously tells you that Maryland has a slight edge here. If this was on a neutral field, the sports books tell you this would be a straight up pick 'em. And I am going to sort of roll with my preseason convictions here. I bet the over on both of these teams, but I had Maryland as a best bet on the channel. So because of that, I'm going to go with Maryland. That's a tiebreaker here, but man, this is such a coin flip game. I could totally see Purdue winning. And as far as the spread, you know what? I'm going to chicken out here. I'm going to follow you here. If you did it, I'm going to do it too. I'm going to say Purdue covers this spread. So, yeah, but hey,
It's truly a coin flip game, man. Like either
yeah,
outcome would not surprise me whatsoever. Maryland, great offense. They've improved a lot, but Purdue is just so well coached, man. So
right.
it'd be interesting to see. I will say Purdue could be missing their best wide receiver in this game. He did get
Yeah.
hurt last game, so I don't know if he's going to play.
That could be a factor, but hey, I mean, I'll allow us to play chicken for one game a week, and we'll let it be this game. So I think the viewers understand. But let's move on.
All right, man. What about Utah and UCLA? This is an interesting matchup. I mean, we literally talked about this earlier. Who would you take in this? Because we're talking about who's the best team in the Pac-12 right now. Who's going to be in the Pac-12 championship game? Utah sitting there at a -4.5 point favorite, playing at the Rose Bowl. So, what do you got?
Well, I am not playing chicken in this game whatsoever. I am going with Utah to win this game, and I think Utah wins this game by 7 points or more. I'm going with the Utes to cover this spread. I believe that Utah showed us a lot last week why they are the best team in the Pac-12. I've been saying that ever since the beginning of the season. And though UCLA is a great story, especially that Friday night game last week against Washington, I think UCLA silenced a lot of doubters, including us. And maybe they're a little bit better than many people expected. But I still think there's a bit of a gap there between UCLA and Utah. And I think the Utes win this game by a touchdown. I still do have a lot of questions about this UCLA defense. And I think this is a type of game that kind of plays into Utah's hands. I think Utah will be able to control this game. And I think they win it by a touchdown.
You know, we discussed this earlier in this pod, so it's no secret where I'm going with this. But for those of you on the YouTube channel who have not heard that section of the podcast, please tune in, check it out. We'll be posting that one up for you on Wednesday. But if you haven't already heard my spoiler, I'm going Utah both ways as well. I think Utah's a better team against UCLA. I said earlier in this pod, if you put up Utah, UCLA, and we're talking about better teams in the Pac-12, I'm taking Utah. So that's the case, and I'm sticking to my guns. So let's move on.
UNC at Miami, man, this was a game that potentially at the beginning of the year, we were looking at it and like, hey, this might actually be a good game, at this point in the season, two teams that could be ranked. But based on how the season's gone, man, for both these teams, it's lost a lot of steam. And I think the big question right now is in the ACC Coastal Division. It's like, who wants to win this division? Because it seems like nobody wants to win this division right now. And Miami's got a clean slate. Miami has not lost an ACC conference game yet. So Miami has their ACC aspirations all in front of them, despite losing to Texas A&M and Middle Tennessee. And they're at home. They're a 4-point favorite against the Tar Heels. What's your verdict here?
My verdict here is that they might as well be playing the Middle North Carolina Tar Heels because North Carolina is going to win this game. So I'm going North
Wow.
Carolina both ways.
Wow. UNC on a minor upset here. So I kind of had trouble with this one, and this is going to pain me to do this, but I'm going to go against you here. I think Miami wins this game. Miami is coming off of a bye week, and I know that we spent a lot of the previous podcast just trashing Miami and the coaching staff, which rightfully so after losing to Middle Tennessee. But I still do believe in the fact that a lot of these teams, when they have just horrendous games like this, they normally don't show up and just lay an egg 2 weeks in a row. And the fact that Miami's had a bye week to get ready for this game, I think is a big advantage for the Hurricanes. I would expect them to come out and play a good game here. It's North Carolina. They'll play up for a good opponent. And frankly, this UNC defense, I love
It's
Drake May. I
terrible.
love the offense. The
Defense is terrible.
it's horrible. It's one of the worst units in the Power Five, let alone the ACC. And what we've seen from UNC is they can make a really bad offense look good. And Miami's had some problems with Tyler Van Dyke and the offense being in sync so far. This North Carolina defense is going to make Miami look good offensively. And I think the sportsbook's telling you Miami's a 4-point favorite. That's a little bit telling here. I just do not trust the UNC defense. I think that Miami will have a bounce back performance. They had a bye week. They will win this game. And as far as the spread, it's -4. Not really the most comfortable doing this here, but I'm going to say Miami covers the spread as well, though I'm not confident in it. I could totally see this being a one-score game either way.
All right. Now let's move on to a non-Power 5 matchup. Western Kentucky, UTSA sitting there at a line of -6.5. So for those of you that haven't been paying attention to the G5, now's the time to look at it. This is a very interesting matchup that could decide this conference later down the line. That's why we're picking it. Shoob, what's your take?
Yeah, I believe these are two of the top 4 teams in Conference USA, and you're right. This could be a game that decides which team goes into the CUSA championship game here. So that's why we're picking it. And if anything, I think my verdict from this game is I don't want to pick a side. I want to pick a total. Whatever the total is, give me the over, give me the points. This is going to be a barn burner. There's going to be points up and down the field in this game. It's probably will be in the 70s. The total will be. But as far as the game itself, a lot of people probably saw Western Kentucky beating FIU 70-0. I don't quite believe Kentucky is that good. I think Austin Reed, they found their man at quarterback. We thought it would be Jared Dagey at the beginning of the year, but Austin Reed has sort of settled in there, and this Western Kentucky offense has been very prolific. And same thing for UTSA. We knew that Frank Harris and this offense we knew was going to be good, and it has been good. Problem is, which defense is going to get more stops? And as of right now, I just think UTSA being at home, being in the Alamo Dome, it's an advantage. I'm going to go with the Roadrunners to win this game outright, but 6.5. I think this will be a one-score game that comes down to the final play, and I'm going to take the Hilltoppers to cover here. That's 6.5 points.
I'm 100% tailing you, Shoob. I think UTSA will win this game. I like the home field advantage. I think they're a better overall, well-rounded team, better defense. I think they're going to get more stops. But Western Kentucky, again, is going to put up some points as well. It's going to come to a matter of the stops that they're getting. Is it an outright stop, or are they stopping them for like a field goal kind of thing? I think it's going to be more like stopping them for a field goal kind of thing, which is going to put us within a line of 6.5. So I like them to go ahead and go UTSA and then WKU on the cover.
All right, so next matchup here, we're heading out west to the Pac-12, Washington State at USC. The Trojans are a 13-point favorite at home. I know you have a little bit of a lean here. So what's your take here with this game?
Well, you already know where I'm going with this because initially I took this on an early bet last weekend, and I was able to get this at minus 14.5. And I immediately went over to Shoob and said, dude, look at this line I just got. You're gonna crap yourself. And lo and behold, Washington State, if that didn't give you any hints, I am taking Washington State on the cover. I think USC will win this game, but a line of 13, I was happy to get it at 14.5, but if you're going to give me that insurance 14.5, amazing. But a line of 13, I think Wazoo will cover. Wazoo is a quality team. USC has struggled against the Oregon States of the world, and I think Wazoo is right up there in that ballpark with Oregon State, if not might be a little bit better than Oregon State. So I really do think USC is going to struggle here and maybe even potentially get their first loss of the season. But I'm not going to be that balls to the wall and pick it. I'm going to take Wazoo on the cover, USC on the win.
I like it. So I am absolutely with you on the spread. I am very confident in Washington State covering the spread. It's very good that you got them plus the 14.5 on the points there. Very much like this line. I think Washington State's still an underrated team. They kind of dominated a pretty decent Cal team in the Pac-12 last week, though Cal did lose their quarterback in that game, Jake Plummer. But I mean, Washington State, we've been saying all season long, they're a decent team, and frankly, from what we've seen from UCLA or USC, they haven't really necessarily been dominating the teams that they should be dominating, like Utah is doing. Utah was able to dominate Oregon State. USC was lucky to pull that one out. Same thing with Arizona State. This was an Arizona State team that's not very good. They fired Herm Edwards, and they kind of hung around with USC. And I don't have any reason to believe why that won't be the case again this week. I think Washington State will hang around with UCLA. I think this will be close. I think it will probably be a one-score game, maybe a 10-point game at the very least. And I've been fading USC all season long, but man, am I going to pick them to lose outright again? Yes, I am. I am going to die on this hill until my corpse is disintegrated and it has nourished the ground and sprouted up a flower. USC is going to lose, and I am picking Wazoo. And believe me, it's going to happen eventually. It's going to happen. Wazoo to win this game. I'm calling it right now.
You know, Shoob, I can totally see it happening this week. And like I was saying in my little breakdown, I think Wazoo could very well win this game. I actually would not be shocked if Wazoo won this game, but it's at USC, and this is a night game, I believe, as well. So Pac-12 after dark gets a little funky. So, and one thing about the Trojans, man, is if it is like a one possession game where the Trojans need to get a touchdown to win the game at the end, they always find a way to do it, even dating back to Keaton Slovis. I don't know how they do it, but they always find a way to win those games. They shouldn't win down the stretch. And that's what happened to the Oregon State game. So we may see more of the same here. That's why I wasn't too ballsy in picking Wazoo both. But I do think that that is not a bad pick at all to go Wazoo both ways.
And if you're wondering how many more times they're going to keep fading USC and keep losing these picks here, well, guess what? Guess who USC plays next week? They play Utah. So I think we know where I'm going there. So, like I said, I'm going to keep dying on this hill. USC will lose. This is probably a look ahead game. If you're USC, you might be looking ahead to that Utah game here, and you're at home against Washington
True.
State. You might think, okay, we should probably win this game. Upset alert here. Washington State, at least on the cover, very confident in it.
I think USC is definitely on upset alert this week.
So now let's move along here. A game between two independents. Neither team is affiliated in a conference, at least for this year. And it's in Las Vegas, too. Very interesting location of this game. BYU versus Notre Dame, and the Irish are a 3.5-point favorite.
Well, it's a neutral site game, and that's 3.5-point favorite, right? So it means at home Notre Dame probably be favored by about 6 points, 5.5 to 6 points,
Right.
roughly. So yeah, Notre Dame. Here's my thing, man. BYU, Jaron Hall, really quality stats, man. BYU's got a quality win against Baylor, but I haven't really been that impressed by BYU. Like, I personally don't have them in my top 25. I have them in my top 30, but not my top 25. And I don't have Notre Dame in there either. But the thing is, I think Notre Dame has more talent. And I think when it comes to games like this, especially on a neutral field, talent is what's going to matter at the end of the day. And in a neutral site like Las Vegas, traveling is going to matter. Now, BYU has it going pretty well for them. It's pretty close to them, so they should travel well for this game. But the Notre Dame fan base is vast and ginormous. Notre Dame is probably going to get a lot of fans in the stands as well. This will definitely be one that I think Notre Dame is going to take both ways.
Wow. So you got Notre Dame going both ways here. So I think with Notre Dame, a lot of people may be looking at this game and thinking to themselves, oh, well, I watched BYU beat Baylor early in the year. Baylor's a solid team. And you may have said, oh, Notre Dame lost to Marshall. And you probably wrote them off after they started 0-2. And you probably have a lot, oh, yeah, Notre Dame's not really that good. Well, if you haven't been paying attention, Notre Dame's kind of gotten it together a little bit. They beat UNC on the road a couple of weeks ago, and then they beat Cal the week before that. And Notre Dame is kind of quietly, I think, kind of riding the ship and getting it together here. Their offense looks a little bit better. And I'm with you. I think, if anything, these two teams are going in opposite directions here. I think BYU has kind of quietly been underperforming relative to expectations. They kind of were in a close game with Utah State on Thursday night the other week. And I have a little bit of concerns about this BYU team. I think BYU is trending down. Notre Dame's trending up right now. And it is a neutral site game. I really like this line here. I think Notre Dame will probably win by a touchdown or more. So I'm going to play the trends here and say the Irish win and cover.
All right, Shoob. What about an ACC matchup? Florida State at NC State minus 3.5 favoring the Wolfpack. What is your takeaway in this game?
So this one is a little bit tricky here. So I was pretty high on Florida State. I liked what was going on there in Tallahassee until last week, and they lost to Wake Forest. And then that kind of cooled off that train a little bit. And then as far as NC State, a team that I was still very high on going into the year, and they kind of have been underperforming relative to how good I thought they were going to be. And the Textile Bowl last week against Clemson, I think you just kind of saw head to head. There's a little bit of a gap between them and Clemson this year. And we talked about it earlier on this pod. How is NC State going to respond? How are they going to respond here? This is not necessarily a Florida State team that has been down in the dumps the last few seasons. This is a Florida State team that on paper is kind of an even match. It is in Raleigh, which I think does help the Wolfpack. I do kind of expect a bounce back performance from NC State, but I also kind of expect a bounce back performance from Florida State. So I really have a tough time reading this game. So I am going to kind of play chicken here again. I'm going to take NC State to win this game outright, but I think Florida State will keep it close. I'm going to say FSU covers here, and I'll take them plus the 3.5 points. I would like to have a strong conviction here on this game, but I can't, to be honest. It's a tough game to read right now, and I'm very, very interested to see how these teams move forward after both taking big losses last week in a critical ACC play.
I think home field advantage in a night game is definitely a plus for NC State. But the thing is, are they demoralized after losing that game to Clemson? As we mentioned earlier in this pod, that was kind of their Super Bowl to go ahead and potentially position themselves to take the ACC title this year. And they weren't able to do so. So it, Florida State has proven to be a more quality team than many expected this season. NC State has played down a little bit, but at the end of the day, this one, I'm with you, man. This one is very hard to gauge where this one is going to end up. But I do think NC State being at home is going to be a deal breaker. NC State's going to win this game. I'll take that. And you know what? I'm not going to hedge here. I don't want to. I don't want to hedge twice. I'm going to go ahead and take them both ways on this one. Although I could definitely see it being a field goal game when it comes to the end of the day. I really could.
Yeah, see, you have stronger convictions than me. I feel like a loser for hedging there on the FSU cover, but I truly have a hard time reading this game. And like I said, I'm very interested to see how this game ends up going because I feel like after this game,
I could. You could be
I will
right,
be able to
man.
have a good
Your
read.
hedge could pay off.
That's true. But I feel like after this game, whoever comes out on top, I feel like we'll have a better read for how their season's going to go. But I will say, I think Florida State, they still have not played Clemson yet. So they still do have technically their reasonable shot at the ACC championship game in their sights because they haven't taken that head-to-head loss to Clemson yet. So we'll see. I'm very interested to see how this one plays out.
Thank you for watching today's video. If you like this, give this a thumbs up, leave us a comment so we can comment back to you guys. Let us know what you think. Also, reach out to us on Twitter, Xan Shoob on Twitter. Give us a follow. We'll give you a follow back. And also comment to us there. We're really engaging with our fans over there. In addition to that, please check out the podcast if you enjoyed this. This is only about a third of what we cover on a day-to-day basis. And we have a lot of new content for you guys coming soon.
Go and check out the pod. If you have Apple Podcasts, go ahead and check it out. We give a lot more content, in-depth breakdowns of the teams that you don't get here on YouTube. Please go ahead and check out our podcast. A lot more.
Link in description.
Links in description. See y'all later. Have a great day.